Maalox, Pepto, and hopefully a pep talk from the president tonight. We're going to learn more about how President Obama plans to hopefully calm the markets when he addresses Congress and the nation tonight. And he'll deliver his address with very strong public support. A new CBS News New York Times poll shows that 63% of Americans approve of his handling of the job. 22% disapprove and 15% have no opinion. We're joined by CBS News senior White House correspondent Bill Plante, who's at the White House this morning. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Maggie. The president tonight will tell the nation that there is reason for optimism despite the grim economic climate. And as investors yesterday were selling off on fears about the financial system, the White House was still denying that the administration wanted to nationalize some banks. Tomorrow, the government begins a new program to calm market concerns. It will start computer modeling of about 20 big banks, the so-called stress test, designed to find out which banks may need more capital to survive future economic problems. If the test shows a bank needs money but can't raise it from private investors, the U.S. Treasury will purchase the bank's stock. A Treasury official says the program is supposed to free the banks from concern about the future and get them lending again. Americans aren't happy with the bank bailout. The latest CBS News New York Times poll shows that well over half the public has little or no confidence it'll help the economy, believing it will help only the bankers. And in case there is any doubt about how people feel about the bankers, a whopping 83% in our latest survey say that if they get the money from the government, they should have their executive compensation limited. Maggie?
CBS's Bill Plante. Thank you, Bill. Let's talk more now about federal assistance to the nation's banks. We're joined exclusively by Sheila Bair this morning, the chairman of the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Very tough job for you lately.
Yes.
Good morning.
These are challenging times. Good morning.
I can't think of a better morning to have you here because all the talk is about the bank. And if you look at the cover of the Washington Post, there it is, the N-word, nationalization, which you have said you would be surprised if we get to that point. But isn't it maybe going to be a necessary evil?
Well, I think there's ambiguity about the word nationalization. It means different things to different people. I think in terms of a resolution process where the government would take active ownership and control and actually run the bank, I think that is something that would be surprising. We have announced that we're going to be doing these stress tests to determine whether banks have enough of a capital buffer to withstand fairly adverse economic scenarios over the next couple of years. And if they don't have an adequate enough buffer, then as the Treasury has indicated, the Treasury is willing to come in and make additional stock purchases to increase the capital buffer. The type of stock will determine whether there is voting associated with that or not. But I think we need to do the stress test first and determine what the capital situation is of these banks and whether they have an adequate buffer before we get to this stage where we can determine what types of additional capital investments the government needs to make.
But it sounds to me like it's a very real scenario that the government could wind up owning a majority stake in these banks if these stress tests show serious cracks, because the stock is worth so little now. We don't have to put that much money in to own a majority.
Well, I think the interagency statement that was released yesterday indicated a strong presumption in favor of private control. And I think we would like to continue that. It's a very tough thing to run a bank.
You would like to, but is it realistic, you think?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I think the Treasury is going to be making a more detailed announcement tomorrow, and I certainly don't want to front run that. And then we need to do the stress testing process to determine what the adequacy of the capital buffer is right now. As of this date, this is the static date, all these large banks exceed regulatory standards for being well capitalized. So for right now, they're fine. I think the issue is how much of an additional buffer they have to withstand more adverse economic situations. And that's what we're going to try to figure out with the stress test.
Does the American public have the right to know the result of these stress tests, to know which banks are stronger and which are weaker?
Well, I think there will be information about that, yes. After the stress tests are over, I think we'll look to the banks to make those announcements. But yes, I think that's right. The taxpayer, the government as investor, has a right to a lot of transparency. So I would agree with that, yes.
Chairman Bair, we have a question from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Harry Smith is there. Take it away, Harry.
Ms. Bair, a question from down here. A lot of doubting Thomases at the New York Stock Exchange. They're looking for something they can put faith in. Is there one specific thing that the federal government or the FDIC is doing right now that they could really hang their hats on, so to speak, or say, this is a sign, we know we can go forward, we can have some optimism?
Well, I think there's been a series of initiatives that have been announced by the Treasury Department. The stress testing is one component. The aggregator bank, the public-private investment fund, is also an initiative that will be launched, I think, in the near future. We've already taken a lot of steps. I think the most important thing the FDIC has done is to provide a strong guarantee against insured deposits. We have a very strong record of insuring deposits. Nobody's ever lost a penny of insured deposits. And in fact, Main Street depositors are maintaining their faith by keeping their deposits in banks. And that, perhaps more than anything, is important and crucial to keeping the banks having the funding they need to continue lending to support the economy. So I know I used to work on the New York Stock Exchange. I know that there is an expectation sometimes people want the quick fix. And if you're looking for the quick fix, you're not going to get it. This is going to take some time to dig out, and people need to be patient. But they need to keep faith, they need to keep confidence, and we will dig out of this.
Madam Chairwoman, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Baer. Good to see you again.